A dirty little puppy sat at the edge of a busy street, silent. He didn't bark. He didn't whine. He just stared, eyes wide, paw raised, pointing at something in the alley behind the dumpster. People passed by, barely noticing him. But when a woman finally followed the direction he was pointing, she screamed. What she found changed everything. This wasn't just a mute puppy. This was a silent cry for help, in a small, overlooked corner of the city, where honking cars drowned out cries for help and cracked sidewalks whispered stories of hardship. A lonely puppy limped through life with no voice, born mute and abandoned behind a gas station. This puppy had never barked a day in his life. Yet somehow, his silence would speak louder than the loudest scream, and end up saving someone who had almost slipped through the cracks, just like him. The morning rush in Pine Hill was in full swing. Commuters bustled down the sidewalks, dodging potholes and balancing coffee cups, unaware of the small figure huddled near the alley entrance behind the rundown grocery store. He was barely the size of a shoebox, his fur matted, his ribs visible beneath the dirt-caked skin. But the most heartbreaking part of this puppy wasn't what was seen. It was what wasn't heard. He didn't bark. Not once. Not when the larger dogs growled at him. Not when a boy tossed a rock at him for fun. Not even when a car nearly grazed him as he stumbled across the road. The shopkeepers called him Ghost. "Dog doesn't even make a sound," muttered old Benny, the butcher. "Gives me the creeps." But 12-year-old Ava didn't think Ghost was creepy at all. She watched him every morning from her school bus window. She saw how he tilted his head when someone dropped food, how he curled up under the same broken bench each night, and how, no matter what, he always raised one paw at the same alley as if pointing. One morning, Ava finally told her mom, "Mom, that puppy, he's trying to tell us something." "Sweetheart," her mother sighed, adjusting the mirror. "He's just hungry, probably wants food." But Ava couldn't shake the feeling. That same night, as the city's neon lights flickered and the streets quieted, Ghost limped to the dumpster again. He sat, stared, raised his paw, and waited. The next morning, Ava couldn't take it anymore. She convinced her mom to drive by the alley on the way to school. "Just stop for a second, please," Ava begged. Reluctantly, her mom pulled over. Ghost was there. As always, he sat upright, alert, paw pointing. "See? He's doing it again," Ava whispered. Her mom hesitated. "Okay, stay in the car." She stepped out, slowly walking toward the puppy. Ghost didn't flinch, didn't move. His eyes, dull and desperate, never left the dumpster. She followed his gaze. Behind the dumpster, wedged between a wall and some stacked crates, was something, a blanket? No, a sleeping bag, faded red, torn. A smell hit her, sharp, foul. Something was off. She crouched down and froze. Inside the bag, a hand, pale, motionless. "Oh my God!" she gasped, stumbling backward. She reached for her phone and dialed 911 with trembling fingers. Paramedics arrived within minutes. Inside the sleeping bag was a woman, mid-30s, barely breathing. Her pulse was weak, body severely dehydrated, and a used syringe lay nearby. It was an overdose, but she was still alive. If she'd been found even an hour later, one paramedic said, we'd be calling the morgue, not the ER. Ava's mom couldn't stop shaking. She stared at Ghost, now curled into a ball near the crate. You saved her, she whispered, kneeling down. Ghost didn't move, just blinked, silently. By the time the story hit the local news, the entire city was buzzing. Mute puppy saves overdose victim in alley behind market. People couldn't believe it. How could a dog with no voice cry for help? That night, Someone left a collar on Ghost, with a tag that read, Hero. But Ava wasn't satisfied. If he knew she was there, she asked, how long had he been trying to tell us? And the question that kept her up at night, was there something else he was trying to point at? They tried to adopt him. Ava begged her mom to bring him home, but Ghost refused to stay indoors. Every time they brought him inside, he'd whine silently and scratch at the door, pawing toward the alley again. It was like something still pulled him there. One night, Ava snuck out with a flashlight. She followed him back to the alley. Ghost stopped halfway. He looked at a manhole cover near the alley wall, sat down, raised his paw again. Not again, Ava muttered, stepping closer. But this time, Ghost's whole body trembled. And somewhere deep beneath the ground, she heard something. A faint thud. Then, a muffled cry. Ava's blood ran cold. There was someone else down there. Ava's breath caught in her throat as she crouched beside the manhole. The soft cry echoed again, muffled but unmistakable. Ghost sat rigid beside her, paw raised, eyes fixed on the cover as if begging her to understand what he couldn't say aloud. She fumbled for her phone, fingers trembling, and called her mom. Mom, I think someone's trapped. Down here, under the street. Ghost led me to it. Ava, are you serious? Where are you? The alley. By the market. Please hurry. Her mom arrived minutes later, panic written across her face. She barely waited for Ava to explain before dialing 911 again. The police arrived quickly, and soon after, the fire department. Flashlights darted over the old manhole cover, which was rusted shut. One of the firefighters banged on the metal with his flashlight and called out, If anyone's down there, knock once. A tense silence. Then bang. A single, faint knock from below. The alley exploded into motion. As the team prepared to open the cover, Ghost remained still, staring into the metal abyss like he knew exactly what was down there. When they finally pried the cover open, a wave of stale air rushed out. The ladder inside was barely intact, leading into pitch blackness. Two rescue workers descended with ropes and headlamps. Ava gripped her mother's hand tightly, her heart pounding. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Finally, one of them called up, We've got her. It's a girl, alive, but dehydrated and weak. Looks like she's been down here for a while. Everyone stared at each other in stunned silence. Who was she? How did she end up underground? They lifted her out. She couldn't have been more than 9 years old. Her clothes were torn, her arms scratched. She blinked in the light, dazed. Ava stepped closer. The girl looked at her, and then at Ghost. You sent him, she whispered hoarsely. Ava's mouth dropped open. What? The girl reached for Ghost. He moved closer, resting his head gently on her lap. I heard his feet, the girl said. Every night, scratching above me. I thought I was dreaming. At the hospital, the girl's name was revealed. Lena Mendez. She'd been missing for 6 days. Her photo had been circulated, but no one thought to look under the alley. Police questioned her gently. Lena said a man, stranger older, had grabbed her near a park. She couldn't remember his face clearly, but she remembered being carried, and then waking up underground in a cold, damp room. She'd screamed for days. No one came, except Ghost. He scratched on the metal above me. I knew I wasn't alone. The story spread fast. Mute puppy leads rescuers to missing girl in underground tunnel. News vans lined up outside the alley the next morning. Reporters crowded the sidewalk, wanting a glimpse of the silent hero. But Ghost wasn't interested in cameras. He slipped away again, back into the shadows, back toward the streets. While Lena rested in the hospital, investigators returned to the tunnel. What they found shocked them. It wasn't just a sewer pipe. It was part of an old, forgotten underground maintenance route that hadn't been used in over 40 years. Further down the corridor, past the place where Lena was found, they discovered more unsettling evidence. A discarded backpack, a pair of small shoes, and most haunting, a torn teddy bear. Chief Daniels stood outside the alley, talking quietly to reporters. "We're not ruling anything out. We believe this could be connected to other missing persons cases in the area. We'll be launching a full investigation." Ava overheard. Her stomach sank. Was it possible there were others? That night, Ghost returned to the manhole. He stared into it again and scratched. Ava watched from her window. She couldn't stay inside. She tiptoed out again, this time with a blanket, flashlight, and bottle of water. When she reached Ghost, she sat beside him quietly. "I'm here," she whispered. "What are you trying to say?" The puppy moved suddenly, fast and determined. He turned, trotting down the alley, deeper than before. Ava followed. He stopped at another dumpster, then slipped behind it through a narrow gap in the brick wall. On the other side was a small, hidden courtyard. Ava had never seen it before. Ghost sat, stared at a loose board in the fence, and raised his paw. Ava stepped closer, pushed the board aside. A hole. And beyond the hole, a dark, low tunnel leading somewhere underground. Ghost waited, and Ava realized this wasn't over. Not even close. The next morning, Ava told the police everything. They returned with K9 units and flashlights, crawling through the small tunnel. What they found made headlines for weeks. Beneath the city were several chambers, old utility rooms long abandoned. Inside one, they found signs of recent occupation. Blankets, food wrappers, candles, and ropes. But no people. Whoever had used the tunnels was gone. Except for one thing. Scrawled on the wall in black marker. "The dog can't talk, but he knows." A chill ran down Ava's spine when she saw the photo of the writing. Ghost had been trying to lead them there all along, piece by piece, like he'd memorized the trail. And he wasn't done, because 2 days later he disappeared. Ghost was gone. He had slipped away sometime during the night, no collar, no leash, no sound. Just gone. Ava had left her window cracked open as always, listening for his soft footsteps or the gentle tap of claws on concrete. But by morning, there was only silence. She searched the alley, the market, the hidden courtyard behind the fence. Nothing. "He's done this before." Her mom tried to reassure her. Maybe he found someone else who needs help. But Ava's heart told her it was more than that. Ghost hadn't just wandered off. He was chasing something. The next few days were strange. Lena's story dominated the news cycle, and Ava's name became local legend. Teachers stopped her in the hallway, students whispered, and reporters even showed up outside her school. But Ava didn't care. She was distracted, haunted, because Ghost was still out there. And Ava couldn't shake the feeling that he was in danger, or that someone was following her. It started with little things. A black van parked across the street for hours. A man in a brown jacket who lingered at the market, pretending to read newspapers but never buying anything. And then, late one night, a message on her phone. No number, just words. "Stay out of it. This isn't your game." Ava stared at the screen, heart racing. She hadn't told anyone about the message. The next morning, the alley was different. The manhole where Lena had been rescued was welded shut. A city crew was there early, claiming it was for safety reasons. But Ava saw the way they avoided eye contact, like they didn't want her asking questions. 2 nights later, Ava heard something outside her window, a soft thump. She opened the curtain and froze. There, on the ground below, was Ghost. Dirty, limping, but alive. Ava ran down, heart pounding, kneeling beside him. Where were you? What happened? Ghost didn't answer, of course. But he didn't need to. There was something tied to his neck. A strip of fabric. A girl's hair tie. And tucked inside it, a tiny rolled-up note. Shaking, Ava unrolled the paper. Only one word was written in smeared pencil. 2. She didn't understand at first. But then she remembered. When Lena was rescued, the police had found one teddy bear and 2 shoes. One of those shoes hadn't belonged to Lena. There had been another child down there. A second victim. Still missing. Ava couldn't sit still. Ghost, limping and slow, dragged himself across her room and pointed again. This time at her backpack. Then her coat. Then the door. You want to go back? He didn't bark. Didn't whimper. But she knew. He'd seen something. And now he wanted to show her. That night, Ava lied to her mom. Said she was sleeping over at Kayla's house. Instead, she packed water, snacks, a flashlight, and wrapped Ghost in a warm towel. Together, they retraced the path through the fence, into the hidden courtyard. The board in the fence was gone now. Someone had nailed it shut, but Ghost simply stared at it. So Ava pulled out a hammer from her bag, and quietly pried the boards loose again. They slipped back inside the forgotten tunnel. Farther this time. Much farther. The air grew colder. The walls tighter. Ghost moved slower now, but he still pushed forward, one paw at a time. After nearly an hour, the tunnel widened. Into another chamber. This one had walls covered in photos. Dozens of them. Some old. Some new. Some torn in half. All children. Some faces Ava recognized from missing posters. Others she didn't. In the center of the room, on an old mattress, was a pile of worn-out stuffed animals. And a box. Inside it, bracelets, shoes, drawings, hair clips. Keepsakes. Ava covered her mouth, choking back tears. This wasn't just a hiding place. It was a hunter's den. And Ghost had found it. Again. A sound broke the silence. Footsteps. Ava ducked behind a crate, pulling Ghost with her. A flashlight beam moved across the far wall. And then a man. Late 50s, long gray coat, dragging a bag. Whistling. Soft. Off-key. Unsettling. Ava's hands shook. She pulled out her phone, no signal. The man dropped the bag beside the mattress and opened it. A girl's backpack. Inside snacks, a small toy, a photo. Then he sat on the edge of the mattress and began to talk. To no one. You see, they always cry at first, he mumbled. But they stop eventually. They always do. This one. She's still got a little fight in her. Ava couldn't breathe. Ghost pressed close to her leg. Then, accidentally, he nudged a glass bottle beside the crate. It fell. Clink. The man froze, stood, turned toward the sound, then smiled. Well, looks like we've got company. Ava bolted. Ghost kept up as best he could, limping beside her as she ran down the narrow tunnel. Behind her, the man's voice echoed. You shouldn't have come back. You don't belong down here. Ava turned a corner, dead end. No. She spun, but Ghost had already dropped to the ground, paw pointing upward. A loose panel in the ceiling. A maintenance hatch. She climbed on his back. He didn't flinch, then pushed it open with all her strength. Moonlight spilled through. She pulled herself up, then reached down for Ghost. He jumped, landing half in, half out. She grabbed his legs, pulled him through, and slammed the hatch shut behind them. They were in a construction yard. Silent, empty, but alive. They called the police. By the time authorities returned, the chamber was gone. Burned. Deliberately. Ashes, smoke, and the smell of gasoline. But something remained. that backpack, and the photo inside it, of a girl with dark curly hair and a pink hoodie. The back was labeled, Sophia, age 6. Sophia hadn't been found yet, but Ava knew she was still out there, because Ghost wouldn't stop pointing. The next day they returned to the alley again, and Ghost scratched at another drain. There was more to uncover, more to save, and the silent puppy still had something to say. It rained the next morning, not a gentle drizzle, but a heavy, cold downpour that soaked the streets and blurred the sky into a smudged gray. But Ghost wouldn't rest. He stood by the door, silent, soaked, pawing lightly at the floor. Ava didn't even ask this time. She threw on her hoodie, grabbed her flashlight, and followed him. Her mother's voice trailed after her from the kitchen. "Where are you off to in this weather?" "Library," she lied, and slipped outside before another question could land. They returned to the same alley, where the charred remnants of the previous tunnel still smoked faintly beneath yellow police tape. But Ghost wasn't looking at that anymore. Instead, he turned sharply and headed down a different block, toward the edge of the old construction site, toward a cluster of rusted shipping containers, half hidden behind debris. Ava followed without hesitation. Ghost stopped at the third one, scratched the door 3 times, then sat down, waiting. Ava tugged at the handle, creaked open. Inside, darkness and cold metal walls, and a ladder leading down. Underground again. Ghost jumped in without fear. Ava hesitated, then climbed after him. They descended into a labyrinth of maintenance corridors and storm drains, abandoned paths that no one used anymore. But someone had been here recently. Plastic wrappers, a water bottle, a child's sock, and faint footprints, small ones. Ava's pulse quickened. The farther they went, the more signs they found. Chalk drawings on the walls, flowers, houses, stick figures. A torn-out page from a coloring book. And finally, a soft noise. A humming. Faint. Fragile. Ava pressed forward, heart hammering, until they reached a small side room, barely taller than a crawlspace. And there, curled up on a blanket beneath an old pipe, was Sophia. She looked smaller than in the photo. Thin. Pale. Her eyes wide with fear. Ghost stopped just outside the doorway and lay down quietly, as if he knew. Sophia stared at Ava. Didn't speak. Didn't move. But Ava crouched down slowly and held out her hand. "I'm Ava. I'm here to help you. That's Ghost. He found you." Sophia blinked. Then, she whispered, "He told me to stay. That he'd come back." Ava swallowed hard. "The man." Sophia shook her head. "The dog." Sophia had been down there for 6 days. Hidden. Terrified. Alone. The man, whom police now identified as Arthur Bell, had left food and whispered things that made her cry. But then one night, Ghost had found her, licked her hand, laid beside her for hours, and left. Sophia had waited like he told her to, because Ghost somehow had given her hope. Ava wrapped Sophia in her coat and guided her back through the tunnel. Ghost walked on one side, Ava on the other. As they emerged into the rain, the sirens began. She had texted her mother from inside the drain system, asking her to call the police immediately. Now the alley lit up with blue and red. Paramedics rushed forward. Blankets, stretchers, questions. Sophia was whisked away, but not before she looked back and whispered something only Ava heard. "He never barked, but I heard him anyway." The story exploded. Mute puppy leads girl to second abducted child. Hero dog saves 2 lives without a bark. Ghost's face was everywhere. On the news, in newspapers, on murals. Ava was invited to speak at a press conference, but she refused. This wasn't about her. It was about Ghost, and Sophia, and the others. because investigators had confirmed something chilling. Arthur Bell had been operating for years. He'd built an entire network of underground hideouts across the city. Some were burned, some were hidden. But one thing was certain. There were more children unaccounted for. And Ghost had led them to two. That night, as Ava sat on the porch with Ghost curled at her feet, a black SUV pulled up to the curb. Out stepped Detective Reyes, the lead investigator on Sophia's case. She approached Ava with a quiet smile. "Mind if I sit?" Ava nodded. Reyes looked down at Ghost. "He's not an ordinary dog." "No," Ava agreed. "He never was." Reyes hesitated, then pulled out a folder. "We think we've identified where Ghost came from. The shelter you adopted him from received him anonymously. No microchip, but I traced his markings." She opened the folder and showed Ava a photograph. A group of dogs in a facility. One had Ghost's eyes. Same scars. Same limp. "That photo's from a training center in Utah," Reyes explained. "Used to train dogs for missing persons and disaster recovery." Ava looked up, confused. "But he doesn't bark." "No," Reyes said. "But he points, just like they train them to." She leaned closer. "The thing is, this particular dog was reported dead 2 years ago." Ava froze. "They said he didn't survive the training, but they never confirmed the body." Ava looked down at Ghost. He was staring at her again, knowing, calm. Reyes stood. "If this is the same dog, someone tried to erase him, just like they tried to erase those kids." That night, Ava couldn't sleep. She kept replaying Reyes' words. Why had someone marked Ghost as dead? Who dumped him in the alley? And what if Ghost wasn't just saving kids? What if he was hunting someone? A knock came at the door around midnight. Ava's mom answered, then called out, "Ava, it's for you." Still in her pajamas, Ava walked into the living room. A man in a delivery uniform handed her a small package. No return address, just her name. Ava opened it cautiously. Inside, a small recording device. And a note. This was in his collar the night he left. Ghost sat beside her now, staring at the box. Ava pressed play. The recording was full of static. Then, a voice. Young. Trembling. "If you're hearing this, please don't stop. They're still out there. They took my sister. I think the dog knows. He found me. He saved me. But he's not done yet. Please follow him. He knows where the others are. Don't let them disappear." It was a boy's voice, not Sophia's. Someone else. Someone still missing. Ghost stood up, turned toward the door, and pointed again. The house was still, but Ava was already tying her shoes. Her heart pounded. Not with fear this time, but something sharper, urgency. Ghost didn't bark. He didn't whine. He just stood at the front door, tail still, eyes focused. Like always, he pointed. And Ava followed. She didn't wake her mother. Didn't wait for backup. Something in Ghost's stare told her. This was the last one. They ran through sleeping streets and fogged alleys. Ghost didn't pause once. He led her deep into the industrial side of town. A place Ava barely recognized. Old warehouses, abandoned train cars, and finally, a chain-link fence torn open at the corner. Behind it stood a storage facility, the kind no one paid attention to. Ava's breath caught. The building loomed in silence. But Ghost pressed forward. Inside, everything smelled of rust, mold, and fear. They found the first trapdoor behind a stack of old lockers. Ghost pawed at it once, then waited. Ava pulled it open and gagged. The air that hit her was rank with mildew and dust. She shined her light downward. Another tunnel. How many more of these had he built? It was worse this time. The tunnel didn't look like the others. This one was clean, lined with makeshift wallpaper. Power cords ran along the walls. It was operational, still in use. Ghost moved silently ahead, nose twitching, stopping now and then to glance back. Ava followed until they reached a small metal door. Locked, but Ghost did something Ava hadn't seen before. He scratched once, then twice, then pointed upward toward the pipes. Ava's eyes scanned the ceiling. A key, hanging by a thread. She climbed the pipe carefully and grabbed it. Inside the room, 2 boys, one asleep, the other sitting with vacant eyes, both thin, dirty, but alive. The awake one looked up, and when he saw Ghost, he smiled. "You came back." The boys were twins. Their names, Brandon and Elias, missing for 3 months. Police had believed them dead, but they'd been moved, kept in different places. Ghost had already tried to reach them once, but had been scared off by a trap. Ava could see the old bite scars on his legs now. He had tried. He never gave up. Ava helped them out of the tunnel as the sky began to lighten. She didn't wait for ambulances this time. She called Reyes directly. 2 more, she said. And Ghost was the one who found them. Reyes' voice broke on the other end. "We'll be there in 10. But as Ava stood waiting for help, something tugged at her gut. She turned around. Ghost was gone, vanished into the mist. She ran through the warehouse, calling his name, even though he couldn't hear, even though he couldn't answer. Nothing, just silence, and a single paw print in the dust, pointing toward a back door. 2 days later, Ava sat on her front steps. The boys were safe, home with family. Ghost's name was being honored in every corner of the country. They called him the Silent Guardian. Statues were being planned. Reyes told Ava that thanks to the clues Ghost had helped uncover, the full child trafficking network had been exposed. Dozens of children, some thought lost forever, were found. Ghost had done the impossible, but he was gone. No sightings, no tracks, nothing. That night a box arrived. No delivery slip, no name, just her first name scrawled in blocky, uneven letters. Inside, a small envelope and a piece of fabric. It was Ghost's old collar, and the envelope held a photograph. Ghost, standing in front of a brick house, with a little girl. She was hugging him, eyes bright. On the back of the photo, a message in a child's handwriting. "Thank you for letting him find me. He said he had to help others now." Ava blinked fast, then looked up at the stars, and whispered, "I hope you're out there, boy." Ava kept the photo by her bed, and some nights, when the wind was just right, she swore she could hear the soft scrape of claws outside. Not barking, not whining, just the quiet pad of feet, always moving forward. On a mission. 6 months later, Ava and her mom moved to a new house near the countryside. The trauma of the past had been slowly replaced by purpose. Ava had started volunteering with a rescue group that trained therapy dogs, especially those with disabilities. She began speaking in classrooms about courage, about silence, about Ghost. One afternoon, after a school talk, a small girl tugged her sleeve. "Was he magic?" the girl asked. Ava knelt down. "No," she whispered. "He was just brave." And then, on a quiet winter morning, as Ava poured cereal into a bowl, her mom called from the porch. "You might want to see this." Ava opened the door slowly. Her hands froze. There, sitting at the edge of the driveway, half covered in snow, was a small white puppy. Not Ghost, but a puppy, white as snow, mute, eyes bright, pointing. Behind him a trail of paw prints, and at the very end, a scrap of cloth, tied to a fence post. It was Ava's old scarf. She dropped to her knees. The puppy walked to her, pressed his head against her chest. And Ava knew, somewhere out there, Ghost was still working, still searching, still saving. And he had sent someone new, because the world still needed him. And now so would she. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more emotional and powerful tales like this one. Sometimes, the quietest voices make the loudest impact. And this mute puppy reminded us that true heroes don't always need to speak to be heard. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. What part moved you the most? Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and never underestimate the silent ones.